Good evening, it is Mindez here, and welcome to the GameBox for the week ending February the 9th, 2013. Your headlines tonight. Mindez makes a gaming news show. The Rayman Legends launch date has been pushed back to September and is no longer going to be a WiiU exclusive. The Scribblenauts Unlimited European launch date has been pushed back indefinitely on the Wii U. And Square Enix posts a 5.7 billion yen loss for the period of March 2012 to December 2012. First up tonight, Mindez makes a gaming news show. Yes, obviously this is the huge thing that everybody's talking about in the gaming industry at the moment. Mindez has made a gaming news show. What? This is madness. Okay. Let's be realistic here. I kind of want to do a little bit of an introduction type thing, because obviously this is the first part of this that hopefully will be a regular feature on the channel if it is well received. We'll see. Essentially, this is coming about because people have been asking my opinion on various pieces of news coming out of the game industry. In particular, the three that I have mentioned so far in this video. And I figured, you know what? I really kind of want to actually share my opinions, because I think that I have a decent knowledge overall of the gaming industry, and I think I can bring a little bit of insight to some of these stories. And it's just generally good to have a nice little chat here where I'm not playing a game, where I can actually talk in a semi-scripted manner. I'm going to be honest. I do have a list of bullet points in front of me telling me roughly what I should be talking about at roughly what times. But, we'll just see how this goes. Now, what I want to say is that, obviously, I've kind of tentatively called this the GameBox, which is a little bit of a stupid name. And I kind of want a lot of this to be kind of run by user feedback. So if you if you have any name suggestions for names for this series, then please go ahead and post them in the comments. If you have any news stories that you'd particularly like me to talk about in next week's GameBox, or whatever the hell this is going to be called eventually, then please go ahead and submit those either to me via email or YouTube PM or comment or whatever. Just basically make it known to me. Because, I try and follow as much gaming news as I possibly can. But, I don't exactly have a team of researchers working for me or anything. So, I tend to miss a lot of the more interesting, particularly the more interesting to me stories. I kind of get all the huge, big stories, but I miss out on some of the particularly more Japanese game-oriented news that I might actually be interested in talking about. And because that's generally a lot less circulated around the Western, series of game journalist sites. And now that kind of brings me on to my first point. This is obviously going to be a kind of biased show towards Japanese games, Nintendo games, Square Enix games, Level 5 games. Those kind of, I kind of grew up around JRPGs and, platformers and things like that. I've never really had a tremendous interest in a lot of Western games, because Western games tend to be dominated by WRPGs and FPSs. And that's two genres that I've never really been a huge fan of. I mean, obviously there are some games in that I absolutely love, but predominantly, the vast majority of what I'm going to talk about is going to be news about the more Japanese side of gaming, the Wii U side, the Square Enix side, the Nintendo side, things like that. More Japanese companies rather than Western companies that you might find on most gaming news shows. Or at least most of the gaming news shows that I've actually, that I actually listen to myself. So absolutely, if you have any interesting gaming news insights that you want to share, then please go ahead and do so, because I would really like to hear about them. Obviously, if you have any... And I would really appreciate your feedback for pretty much anything about this particular show. Obviously, this is something that I've never really done before. I've always really had kind of never planned anything in advance for videos, really. I've always just kind of gone into a game and just started rambling. And now I'm just kind of having to basically follow at least a roughly linear chain of thought. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see if it's particularly well thought of or whatever. And, we'll make any changes that we can and hope that we can change it in a way that you guys will be happy with, essentially. And the main reason I'm doing this, like I say, is because people have been asking for my insight in certain gaming news events. And typically, people ask me for my opinion on Twitter or in YouTube comments, and you have such a small character limit. I think the character limit's 140 on Twitter, or like 200 in YouTube comments or something. And I can't form an opinion in 200 words. Not even 200 words, 200 characters. That's just crazy. It's the kind of thing where if I had a blog or anything like that, I could write pages and pages on the subject. So instead, I just kind of want to do it in video format, just to kind of make it a little bit more pleasant in a way, and have it less walls of text, and have it a little bit more structured than I would usually, talk in a video. And, people have said, why not just kind of say what you want to say in your videos on other series? Well, there's only 3 ways that can end, and none of them are any good. The first way is that I never actually get around to saying something in the time that it's actually relevant in one of my videos. And obviously then nobody hears my wonderful opinion, and that's just a travesty. The second way it could end is that I start to formulate some kind of opinion and start to say something, but then I get distracted by a butterfly in a game. It's happened before, let's be honest. Maya's Martha, a perfect example. Oh, look, a butterfly! You're dying of a curse. No, I want to see this butterfly. The third way it could possibly end is that I do actually manage to get my opinion out, and I do actually manage to, form a succinct argument and bring some actual discussion to something, but it's lost in a torrent of videos, and I can't remember which part of which series it's in, and that's just never a good idea. So I figured I'd start this kind of gaming news show more to just kind of bring all those kind of discussions together, if you will. Bring all my opinions and stuff, and all the gaming news together into one little bundle. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So with that said, let us move on to our first piece of news today. Rayman Legends launch date has been pushed back to September and is no longer going to be a WiiU exclusive. Well, where to start on a story like this? Now, a little bit of backstory. Rayman Legends was supposed to be a launch day release for the Wii U, and around about the time the Wii U was launched, the assumption was that the game wasn't quite ready yet and had to be pushed back to February the 8th, and then a couple of days before February the 8th they've gone ahead and turned around and said, okay, look, we're not happy with how the Wii U is going at the moment. We really need to kind of make this a multi-platform release because we're not going to make as much money if we go ahead and launch it on the Wii U now. So this is the second time it's been massively delayed, which is just a little bit unfortunate. Let's put it lightly, a little bit unfortunate. Now, obviously, I have kind of selfish reasons for wanting it to come out on the Wii U earlier, mostly because Rayman Legends I've been looking forward to for quite a while, pretty much since I started playing Rayman Origins. And I've kind of been doing a lot of work on Rayman Origins trying to get it finished up before Rayman Legends comes out, but clearly that's not going to be an issue anymore. However, what Ubisoft's basically saying with this is they are turning to Nintendo and saying, look, we've looked at how the Wii U's doing, and clearly you don't have enough sales to make a multi-platform, to make a platform exclusive financially viable for us. And that's really what a decision like this comes down to. It's going to be about financial viability. This is not a decision that Ubisoft could have taken lightly. because this is really not a decision that makes Ubisoft look very good, in my opinion. Partly because, obviously, a lot of people were anticipating this. This was going to be the big thing that made the Wii U worthwhile. This exclusive, good platformer, which is really what the Wii U needs. And now they've turned around and said, no, actually, we're not going to. And this is after Nintendo has spent a lot of time and money, and energy, promoting Rayman Legends, because Rayman Legends was going to be huge on the Wii U. This was going to be a game that really moved consoles. This was going to be a huge console seller for them. But it's not going to be that anymore. And, I was at Play Expo. I go to quite a lot of cons, but Play Expo in particular, Nintendo was at, and this was just before the Wii U launched. They had an area of floor space. They had all the games set up. They had Trine 2, New Super Mario Bros. U, the Nintendo Land, Zombie U, and they had a whole wall of Rayman Legends dedicated Wii U's, playing like a Rayman Legends demo. And, that just kind of shows just how much time and efforts and money Nintendo's put into kind of selling Rayman Legends. And then for Ubisoft to go ahead and turn around and say that they're no longer on Nintendo's side is just a little bit crazy, really. Like, the Rayman games have never really been huge players in the industry. And for a Rayman game to have this much power over the success or failure of a console at the moment is just bizarre. And obviously, people at Ubisoft have been quoted as saying that they're doing this to avoid disappointing the people who kind of bought Rayman Origins on the PS3 and the 360. That's really a PR spin on the whole thing. This is entirely a financial decision. That's pretty obvious at this point. Staggered multi-platform releases never make as much money as, huge multi-platform simultaneous releases. It's very rare for that to happen. Now, unfortunately, what this means for the Wii U is that the actual good game library for the near future is kind of stagnating a little bit. Like I said, Rayman Legends was meant to be a pretty big thing on the Wii U, and obviously now it's not going to be. So over the next couple months, I think the only games that have actually been scheduled to be released, there's a lot of games that are going to be released way down the line, and we've seen a lot of those at Nintendo's conferences, at Nintendo's keynote events, at the live stream things they do. I can't remember what they're called at the moment. Nintendo Direct, I think it's called. There are fantastic games coming down the line. We've got Project X. Well, not Project X. We've got the game called X, I think it was. We've got the Yoshi's Epic Yarn, or whatever it's called. We've got Pikmin 3. We've got these fantastic sequels to older Nintendo games. But they're way off down the line. They've had no release date announced. They've had no anything announced. We've got some video, some rough gameplay idea. Some of them, we don't even have that. And the only games coming up in the near future that might possibly save the Wii U are games that I don't think will be big players. They're not the kind of games that are going to shift consoles. They're the kind of games that are good for people that already have the console. So they'll be good for the early adopters, but they're not the kind of games where you look at them and think, yeah, it's now at the point where it's worth buying a Wii U. And I've got to mention at the end of the next news story I do just how much worse it is for Europe as well. But really, the only games on the Wii U that are at all interested, Nintendo platforms always rely a lot on first-party and second-party titles. People that develop for the Wii U exclusively. Unfortunately, those kind of companies need a lot of time to develop their games, so that they're not going to come out for a while. And all we really have coming out over the next month or so are Lego City Undercover and Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I'm sure they're going to be fantastic games. Will they sell consoles? That's a little bit difficult to tell. This is a huge blow to the Wii U, and can it recover? Yes, but it's really going to take time until the big Nintendo games start coming out. Until we get things like Yoshi's Yarn and X and whatever else. Alright, with that done, let's move on to news item number 3. The Scribblenauts Unlimited European launch date has been pushed back indefinitely on the Wii U. Goddamn Scribblenauts Unlimited. Now then, if you are American, chances are you've already played this game, or indeed watched other LPs of it, because, you know, the game is outright good. And I would highly recommend it to everyone. However, the game has still not been launched in Europe. Now, this game was another one that was meant to be a, you know, if not a Wii U launch title, at least coming out within the first couple of weeks of the Wii U, and I think it did come out in the first couple of weeks of the Wii U in America. But that's still not happened over here, and they kind of pushed the release date back to February the 8th. Obviously, European gamers were a little bit annoyed at this, but, you know, I could kind of understand the reason for it at the time. You know, it takes a little bit of time to localize. You got to change up some of the words. You got to like add in some U's every now and then in things like color. You got to change the spelling of grey. You got to change like lift to elevator and things like that. You know, that's the really important thing in localizing. But suddenly, February the 8th came around, and now they have gone out and said that it will not be released on February the 8th. And in fact, the launch date has been pushed back indefinitely. There is absolutely no indication of when or even if it's going to be released in Europe anymore. And the publishers and the developers are not saying why. Okay. I should point out also, this is not just the Wii U version. Steam as well. We've not had Scribblenauts Unlimited on Steam either. Here in Europe, and there's really no viable reason for this. Like, at the time, I thought, okay, maybe it's some kind of distribution issue. Maybe they don't have the money to kind of sell the individual discs, you know, on the Wii U. But then I looked further into it, and you know, they delayed the Steam version. Like, why would you delay the Steam version? That's a digital download. Steam handles the digital downloading. You don't have to run servers or anything. You send the compiled source to Steam, and then they take care of it and distribute it to people. And the money comes piling in. That's how Steam works. And it's on Steam in America. Why is it not in... I'm having some weird voice crack. That's even America. So why is it not on Steam in Europe? Like, we're in 2013, and we're still getting we're still getting massive gaps between releases between America and Europe. Like, this is the kind of stuff that should have been sorted out 5-6 years ago. You know, with the advent of digital downloading, it makes absolutely, literally no sense not to release your game in multiple regions at the same time. I could sort of understand if it was a problem with the distribution channels. Maybe Warner Brothers don't actually have the capacity to actually ship that many Wii U versions to Europe. And fair enough, maybe they were going for the same thing Ubisoft's doing. Maybe they were like, okay, we need to release it on the same, like, on multiple platforms at the same time to make more money. Maybe it was a distribution thing. But the Wii U version actually is published by Nintendo, which means that they are the ones in charge of distribution. And Nintendo absolutely, definitely has the distribution networks in place. So, why are we not getting Scribblenauts Unlimited? the publisher is outright refusing to say. Really? This is just a huge smack in the face to anyone that wants to give you money. You know, on the day that Scribblenauts Unlimited was released in America, I kind of did a little bit of an angry rant on Twitter. And then I went ahead and downloaded Scribblenauts Unlimited from illegal sources. Would I have given money to the developer if I could? God, yes! I would love the opportunity to buy Scribblenauts Unlimited legally and play it legally. But I can't, and this is why piracy is so rampant in certain games. See, the publisher for the Steam version is Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers is a movie studio, and Warner Brothers have actually gone on record in the past for stating that they don't understand why piracy is so rife, and it's because of things like this. We cannot buy it legally. To play the game at all, we have to download it illegally. Now, I consider myself a fairly moral person. I will still pirate games. But I will only pirate games if there are no channels available for me to buy it legally. You know, particularly with things like region lock, which is another topic that I think is absolutely ridiculously stupid. Particularly things like region lock. I can't even import a copy of Scribblenauts Unlimited because I would have to import an American WiiU. It really does boggle the mind as to what exactly goes through the developers and publishers' heads when they think of things like this. I'm sure there's a perfectly viable reason, but absolutely nothing is coming to mind. It's just crazy. And of course, what this means is that the Wii U in Europe, this is yet another big blow to Nintendo, because the Wii U in Europe is not going to be as attractive an offer as the Wii U in America, just because we have that one smaller game. Scribblenauts Unlimited is a great game, and might actually sell Wii U's. Particularly the interesting way that it actually uses the gamepad. And I'd actually really like to play it, but unfortunately, nope, not being released. Warner Brothers, what is wrong with you? Nintendo, what is wrong with you? Now, despite this, okay, before we go into that, also, the Steam version. That was also supposed to come out around about the time of the Wii U launch. That was delayed along with the game originally to February the 8th. Then when it was announced that the Wii U version would not actually be released on February the 8th, the Steam version has now actually changed to February the 15th. Is that actually going to be true? Are we actually going to get Scribblenauts Unlimited on Steam? Because it's available for pre-purchase, and it has been available for pre-purchase for a very long time. And if the release date just keeps going further and further away, that's craziness. It's just a huge slap in the face to everyone in Europe who wants to play the game. You know, as soon as I can, I will gladly buy the game. But I can't. Now, despite all this, of course, okay, maybe there's some kind of problem with the, localization. Maybe there's some issue that causes it to not work on European Wii U's. Oh wait, no there isn't! And the reason we know this is because yesterday, on February the 8th, somebody clearly forgot to uncheck a flag. That meant that the game was actually available to download from the Nintendo eShop on the Wii U. Yeah! And people did download it, and people still have it. And they have reported that it works absolutely fine. Okay, the way region locking in games works, at least this is how region locking games worked at the time of the DSi and at the time of the Wii. The way region locking works on these platforms was that rather than having a region switch, like DVDs have, each region has to have the entire game recompiled with a different encryption. And for a game to work on the European Wii or Wii U, I'm assuming the system carries over to the Wii U. I may be wrong on this. For the game to work on a European Wii U, it has to be specifically compiled for European Wii U's. The fact that it was available on the download store, and the fact that it works perfectly, and that everyone that's downloaded it has reported it absolutely working perfectly, means that the game has been compiled and is ready to release in Europe. But it's not been. Because they don't want our money, is all I can think of. It's amazing. And unfortunately, is another nail in the Wii U's coffin. I don't want to say that the Wii U's dying, but it's certainly not exactly in a great position with regards to the current landscape of the games available and the games that are going to be available in the coming weeks, particularly in Europe. Well then, our final news piece for today. It's all negative news today. Have you noticed that? It's all horrible news. I will try and find some positive news for next week, I promise. But I did this kind of at short notice, so, there we go. Final piece of news for today is that Square Enix has posted a huge 5.7 billion yen loss for the 9-month period between March and December of last year. That's about $61.5 million US. And a lot of video game companies have kind of been announcing their financial status for this 9-month period, and Square Enix was the only one to go away with a loss. All the other big companies, Namco Bandai, Tecmo, Capcom, were in huge profits, and Square Enix is the only big company that announced a loss for this 9-month period. So we kind of have to look into what the possible reasoning for this could be. This is also actually the first time the company has reported a loss since Square and Enix formed in 2003. And this is pretty big news, honestly. This is very bad for Square Enix. They have stated that game sales are actually up. So what this either means is that they are making less profits per game sale, or they are spending more in costs. Now, it's probably a mixture of the two, obviously. I think overall in the game industry at the moment, publishers and developers are kind of making less money per sale in general, just because of the way that the industry is kind of trending towards kind of huge sales. And so perhaps it is something to do with that. However, Square Enix has always been kind of a huge proponent in, it's kind of been very against a reduction in price. And we can see this obviously by looking at their iOS store. Because on their iOS store, there are quite a few Final Fantasy remakes, which are still many, 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 many years after they've come out, hugely expensive. relatively. I think Final Fantasy 1's about £10, which, it's a fantastic game, it's certainly worth the price, but for such an old game is a little bit weird, and, this is something that Square Enix does quite a bit. I mean, obviously, mobile devices aren't a huge source of income for Square Enix, and Square Enix actually has a lot of different... It's got a lot of stakes in a lot of different things. It's got the Hitman franchise, it's got the Tomb Raider franchise, now that it's kind of taken over Eidos, and those two have both had fantastic, huge games released either coming soon or very recently. We also have Sleeping Dogs, which has come out and was pretty well received by critics. We also have... what's the other one? I can't entirely remember off the top of my head. And over in Japan, of course, it's also doing tremendously well with things like Bravely Default, and with things like Dragon Quest X, which hasn't been quite the hit that they expected, and perhaps that is the reason behind a lot of their costs, that they're kind of underestimating just how much they would have to spend on server maintenance. But essentially, what I'm hoping for Square, because Square Enix obviously will be privy to a lot of information that we are not, and Square Enix has actually projected that they will, for the 12-month period ending March 13, the financial year, be experiencing a overall net profit of 3.5 billion yen, or $37.6 million. So basically, over the next 3 months... over the last month and the next 2 months, January, February, March, they have to somehow make about $100 million or so. The question really is whether this statement is true, or whether it is just kind of a little bit of hopeful thinking on the fact that they have to appease their shareholders. Now, if there is every possibility that it absolutely is true, and if it absolutely is true, then what that means, hopefully, is that they've spent a lot of money in those 9 months on operating costs and on developing good games. But are they really going to make $100 million or, 9 billion yen over this 3-month period? It's kind of difficult to say yes, because they don't really have anything huge coming out for this period. We do have Tomb Raider coming out, which should be pretty big. But that's really the only big Square Enix release, either in the West or Japan over this 3-month period. Now, obviously, they're not going to make $100 million purely from Tomb Raider. But will they make that, combined with, prolonged sales of what they've already released for over the last year, combined with a potentially less spending on operating costs? And it's absolutely possible that they will end up with a profit. It's a little bit unlikely, and their statement that they will make a profit of 3.5 billion yen it sounds very much like something that they're just saying to appease the shareholders more than anything. But we will see whether they will be able to essentially come up with a net profit. Now, Square Enix, of course, is not really the powerhouse that it used to be. It used to be, this huge monster of awesome games. You know, it controlled the entire Final Fantasy series, the entire Dragon Quest series, and now it's just kind of it's kind of lost a lot of its former glory, and that it's just kind of promoting. It's taking more of a publisher role in certain aspects for games like the Hitman series, Tomb Raider, Sleeping Dogs. I don't think was actually developed by them, and they've kind of lost a lot of their former glory. And there's a lot of reasons as to why this is. There's a lot of history in Square Enix about how a lot of the big players that kind of helped make Square Enix good have left for one reason or another. And Final Fantasy XIV may also be a factor in this whole thing as well, because they've spent a lot of money over the last year making Final Fantasy XIV, making this Realm Reborn for Final Fantasy XIV. And will that get in the subscriptions? Will that get in some money? Possibly. We kind of need to wait until there's actually any word on when that'll be available. But the beta is actually available for signing up for now. So perhaps that will be something to look forward to in the near future. Perhaps Square Enix can pull off getting a profit, but as being the only company to announce a loss is a little bit suspect. And Square Enix has obviously been going down a hill a lot recently. And can it come back? I'm a little bit skeptical, honestly. It would take something very special, let's put it that way. And that is going to be it for the GameBox, or whatever the heck I decide to call this, for the week ending February the 9th, 2013. I will, like I say, if you have anything to comment about, anything to, any suggestions for the format of this particular series, or any suggestions for news items to talk about over the next coming week, please go ahead and make them known to me either by YouTube comment, PM, email, Twitter, tweet, or anything like that. I shall end this show by mentioning the next week's coming releases. February's not a fantastic month for releases in general. The only real release to look out for over the next week is Aliens Colonial Marines, which is coming out on PS3, 360, and PC, not the Wii U version yet. And this is a sequel to Aliens vs. Predators from 3 years ago, published by Sega. This version is made by Gearbox Software, unlike Alien vs. Predators. It might be worth a look, honestly. I'm probably not going to, but just because of, the Aliens games have had a history of being not that great. The question is whether Gearbox can make a good one, and I think if any company can, it would probably be Gearbox. But, that kind of remains to be seen. It might be worth checking out critic reviews and kind of looking at this one if you are a fan of the Aliens films. But I probably won't be. Gearbox, of course, also made Aliens Infestation on the DS, which was actually a pretty decent game. That was a 2D side-scroller. This is going to be an FPS. Can they pull it off and make a good Aliens game? Difficult to tell. If you're interested in the game, I would recommend checking out reviews before buying. Let's just put it that way. And that comes out on February the 12th, which is, I believe, Tuesday. That's right. Alright, so I'm going to shut up now. I've kind of rambled on for long enough about basically nothing. Go ahead and leave any suggestions for, either the name of the series, or, news stories, or, whether you liked this, or whether you would continue to watch this, or basically how I could improve, or whatever like that. This is something very new for me, and I'm I kind of want you guys to have a bit of feedback into how this is made, essentially. So, we'll see if this becomes a regular thing. Hopefully it will be. I've had some fun just kind of ranting here, just talking at my computer screen. Yeah. See you guys! Okay, we're going the wrong way. Okay, we're going the wrong way. Engine malfunctioned. Right. Okay, we're going. Okay, turn. Windscreen wipers on. Windscreen wipers on. There. Where the hell am I going? Where? Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I see the problem. I can't move.